when you returned to the defendant's home on Rockingham?
We were just sitting at the bar, talking, having more drinks.
Okay. While you were talking, did you say something to the defendant?
Yes, I did.
Please tell us what you said.
I told him that he took Nicole for granted, and he blew up.
Objection, Your Honor. This is irrelevant.
Sustained.
On what grounds, Your Honor?
Why this witness thinks that Miss Brown Simpson was taken for granted is not relevant. What's relevant is the fact that this witness made the comment and any reaction to that comment.
What reaction, if any, was there by the defendant when you told him that he took your sister Nicole for granted?
He got extremely upset.
Okay, and then what happened next, Miss Brown?
He started yelling at me. I don't take her for granted. I do everything for her. I give her everything. And he continued. And then a whole fight broke out. And pictures started flying off the walls. Clothes. Clothes started flying. He ran upstairs and he came flying down with clothes. He grabbed Nicole. He told her to get out of his house. He picked her up. He threw her against the wall. He picked her up and he threw her out of the house. She ended up on her, she ended up on her elbows and her butt, and then he threw Ed McCabe out too. We were all just sitting there screaming. And then he picked me up and he threw me out of the house. He grabbed me and he threw me.
Are you okay, Miss Brown?
Yeah, no. Oh, God, it's just so hard. I'll be fine. I'll be fine.
No further questions at this time, Your Honor.
Mr. Shapiro, we have some time remaining. Do you wish to
Wait a
cross-examine?
minute, Your Honor. Thank you. Yes. All right, John, take leave. I think we're gonna Easy. Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, Your Honor. Now, Ms. Brown, as you know, I'm going to have to ask you some questions. Are you all right?
Yeah, yes.
All right. Would you like the bailiff to get you some
No,
water?
I'm fine.
All right. Now, in preparation for your testimony here, did you properly meet with members of the district attorney's office to go over areas that you would be questioned on today?
Yes.
I see. And have you done that on several occasions?
Yes.
All right. Now, how many occasions did you do that on?
Twice.
I see, twice. And have you had a chance to review a transcript of the statement that you gave to the district attorney's office?
Yes.
Okay, good. When was the last time you had a chance to review that?
It was maybe 4 days ago.
And was that accurate, the things that you said in that transcript?
As far as I remember, yes.
All right. And the incident that you spoke about, let's refer to it as the alleged Rockingham incident. The first incident when you were there with Ed McKay.
Right.
you talk about that incident with the district attorney's lawyers?
Yes, I told them about that.
I see. And did they ask you when that occurred?
Yes, they did.
And did you have an answer for them?
I had thought it was like in, I didn't know the exact year, but it was like in the mid-'80s after I had remembered.
Mid-'80s. Is that what you remember telling them?
I think that I told them at first that I didn't remember when it was, but that I would check.
Now, did you tell them that you didn't know whether it was before or after O.J. married your sister?
I told them that I didn't remember, that I would check for them.
I see. And then you checked it later?
Yes.
I see. And what did you check to find that out?
Pictures that I had when I was dating Ed McCabe.
And Ed McCabe was your boyfriend at the time.
Yes.
You dated him for about 7 months?
I thought that it was more like a year.
I see. And how long into the relationship was it that the alleged events at Rockingham took place?
I really don't remember how long we had been going out.
Well, no, that's okay. That really wasn't my question. How long had you been seeing Mr. McCabe before the alleged events?
I don't remember.
I see. Now, prior to going back to Rockingham, you said you'd been at some type of restaurant.
Yes, right?
All right. And there was some drinking going on.
Yes.
And you told us that you had some problems with alcohol in the past.
Yes.
And do you recall what your state of sobriety was that night?
I had had a few drinks.
Well, did you feel the effects of the liquor?
Sure, we were all happy.
And then you went back to the Rockingham house.
Yes.
And you had some margaritas there.
We had more drinks at the house.
I see. Would you say that your state of sobriety was slightly impaired?
Slightly.
Now, would that go for everybody who was there?
Yes.
Do you have any recollection of O.J. not liking people smoking in his house?
Oh, no, he did not like cigarette smoke at all.
And your boyfriend, Ed McCabe, he was a smoker, wasn't he?
Yes, he was.
And Nicole, she was a part-time closet smoker, wasn't she?
I don't know if she was at that time, but yes.
Now, do you recall some words being spoken by O.J. to Ed McCabe about smoking in the house and giving Nicole some cigarettes?
No, I don't.
Do you recall any discussion about that at all?
About smoking?
Yes.
No.
Well, now, if Ed McCabe's recollection on this issue was different than yours, would you say that that was a fair recollection?
Objection, Your Honor, form of the question.
Sustained?
Ms. Brown, when was the first time that you had to think back about this incident in the early 80s?
Actually, a girlfriend of mine reminded me about it.
Well, how long ago was that? And I'm trying to get the time sequence, not how you did it. When was the first time you refreshed your memory?
It's never left my mind.
Well, is it something that you've talked about for 10 years with people?
My girlfriend, she said, remember that, remember this, remember that.
Well, when was this?
When I told my girlfriend about it,
When your girlfriend told you about it. Remember this, remember that. When did that come up?
it was after the murders.
So that's some 12 or 13 years later. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, have you talked to anyone who was at the Rockingham house about that incident since the time that it occurred?
There were only the four of us there.
Okay. Have you talked to Ed McCabe about it?
I did.
And when did you talk to him about it?
I called him. Gosh, I'm really bad with time. A month or two ago.
And was his recollection different than yours?
Objection, Your Honor. Calls for hearsay.
Sustained.
No further questions at this time, Your Honor. Thank you.
Denise is an effective witness, not necessarily with the jury, but in the minds of the public, she convincingly paints OJ as a wife beater and puts an end to any hope he has of regaining his former status. The prosecution next summoned some of my neighbors who heard or saw things. They want to establish their theory of the time of death. It all comes down to Cato. Not Kaylin, our dog, our sweet, playful Akita who slept beside Sydney and Justin's beds. Someone says they heard a plaintive wail at 10:15. And after, Cato led neighbors to our bodies. The prosecution next puts on some of the police officers who arrived at my home. Among them is Detective Mark Furman. In 1985, Furman answered a disturbance call at Rockingham. He arrived at my home to find OJ standing with a baseball bat over the busted windshield of our Mercedes.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you may give in the cause, now pending before this court, shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
I do.
Detective Furman, can you tell us how you feel about testifying today?
I'm nervous.
Can you tell us why?
I've seen a lot of the evidence ignored and a lot of personal issues come to the forefront. I think that's too bad.
Heard a lot about yourself in the press?
Daily.
Since his testimony in the preliminary hearing, various people have come forward to reveal their experiences with the detective, who, while all alone, made the significant discoveries of the case. Among these people is Kathleen Bell, a Redondo Beach realtor, who had heard the detective express his intolerance of African Americans, particularly African Americans in company of white women.
Back in 1985 and 1986, sir, can you tell us whether you knew someone or met someone by the name of Kathleen Bell?
Yes, I can tell you. I did not.
But you recognize the name?
Yes,
When was the first time you heard that name?
it was in the fall of '94.
And how was it that you heard her name?
In connection with allegations of statements I made to her at a date sometime in '85 or '86.
And where did you hear those allegations?
In the news?
And were you informed about a letter she had written in July of 1994 after the preliminary hearing to Johnny Cochran?
Yes, I did.
Are you presently familiar with the contents of the letter?
Oh, yes.
Did the conversation Ms. Bell describes in this letter occur?
No, it did not.
Thank you, Detective. Now, can you tell us what your assignments were on June the 12th and the 13th?
I was a detective assigned to West Los Angeles homicide.
On the evening of June the 12th, did you receive a call at some point that night?
Yes, I did.
And what were you told in that call?
I was told by my supervisor, Detective Ron Phillips, that we had a double homicide and it was at 875 South Bundy, and that I would meet him at the station and we would get a vehicle with a homicide kit and go out to the scene from there.
Were you told anything about the identity of either victim?
Yes, Detective Phillips said that the female victim might be the ex-wife of O.J. Simpson.
Now, what was the condition of the crime scene when you found it, when you got there at 2:10?
Well, the streets had been blocked off with crime tape and police vehicles. We were advised that certain streets and alleyways had been blocked off. The front of the residence had been taped off and secured all the way to Dorothy and to the next street to the north. The north-south alleyway directly behind the residence had been blocked off with policemen at both locations to make sure nobody entered the crime scene from either direction.
Did you make contact with the first officer that found the bodies?
Yes, both Detective Phillips and I did.
And who was that?
Officer Risky.
What did you expect to have transpired by the time you arrived at the scene?
I expected the scene to be secured, death to be pronounced to the victims, the officer to secure the location, protect the evidence, to make mental notes of where certain things were, and to help assist me in finding a path into the scene.
And when you say, help assist me in finding a path into the scene, what do you mean?
The easiest route to disturb the least amount of evidence so the scene can be investigated.
And did you have a flashlight with you that night?
Yes.
What kind of flashlight was that?
I had a small flashlight that I held on my belt.
Okay, size of a pen?
Yes, I believe 2 AA batteries and adjustable heads so you can make it a wide beam or a very narrow beam.
Now what, is there any rule, sir, regarding crime scene examinations concerning how you get access to them, where you're allowed to go, how many people, that sort of thing?
Well, as few as possible. That would be the first rule. And you would want to be able to take those people without destroying any evidence.
Okay. What were you able to see from your vantage point?
We could see a female victim in a black dress lying head to almost due north, feet almost due south, somewhat face down in a pool of blood. It appeared that blood was flowing down predominantly in the cracks of the tiled walkway.
What were you able to see from that vantage point other than the female victim?
Well, Officer Risky pointed out several items.
And what did he point out?
He pointed out the male victim for one, which wasn't easily seen from that angle. He pointed his flashlight and said that there was a knit cap and a glove there also.
Did you make some effort to see the knit cap and the glove that he pointed out to you?
At that time, we asked Officer Risky if there was another way we could come into this crime scene.
And why was that, sir?
It was, we would have to step onto the sidewalk where all the blood was to get into the crime scene, or touch the fence which we were standing next to get around that. We didn't know what was on the other side. We preferred to go in another way if we could.
Okay. So you were trying to get a better look
Yes.
without disturbing anything?
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Bailey? Thank you, Your Honor.
Detective Furman, have you had some training in footprints?
Shoe prints or footprints?
Shoe prints, footprints. Have you had some classes, some on-the-job training, or anything that would educate you as to the kinds of footprints that can be found at a crime scene and how they can be isolated and preserved?
Yes.
Do you know what a latent footprint is?
It would be something that's not visible to the naked eye.
So that if there were any latent footprints that were on the Bundy walkway that night, that's something that only the criminalist could likely pick up, correct?
Yes.
In other words, if there had been 2 people, one stepped in blood, the other didn't, there might be some latent footprints around to be detected by somebody properly trained. Fair statement?
I'm not sure if it would be a fair statement.
Don't think so?
I'm a little confused at the question.
Well, if a latent footprint, shoe print, is one that cannot be seen with the naked eye, but must nonetheless be protected, you can only protect the area where it might be, correct? Not a specific spot in that area.
I understand what you're saying. Yes, sir.
Yeah. And a criminalist might later come along and either with ultraviolet light or oblique light find some